boards and such. And things.
I like that idea.
Oh, hey! Didn't see you there. We're just talking about what we should do for our art project, for fine arts, and what we think art is. Yeah, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so we, chat about the content of the semester, really just think about what we've learned, how it makes us feel. We're gonna, take that and apply it into the real world.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Speaking of art,
Yeah.
we saw so much art. We went to PAM, so many different kinds, different kinds of art. There was like contemporary and old-timey stuff, and like all different kinds of people was making the art. And like that weird bell thing, that was pretty wild, huh? It's just so much art, like an impressive variety.
I agree. Like, honestly, the variety between the individuals that created the art was super impressive. Like, the difference between the Kehinde Wiley portrait and then like the Belle the Digger and the Tropical Pharmacy, that like weird video thing, it's like night and day in terms of mediums. But they like both made me feel something. And the Kehinde Wiley portrait was like a fresh take on traditional art, but the video was just abstract altogether. It was just like crazy different.
Yeah, man, there's like so many different kinds, like art can come in so many different like forms
Yeah.
and stuff. Like it's wild. And just like it's so great.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I know another type of art. Hey Olivia, do you remember the opera?
Yeah, that Pinkerton guy sucked. But even so, I think it's really cool to think about like how many people and different forms of art like came together to make that production, even though it was 3 hours long.
Yeah, I really liked the set design and lighting aspect of the opera. For example, they had this thing where they used different color lighting in the background to represent like a sunset effect.
Yeah.
And then they darkened the colors from like warm tones, a sunset, into like a darker kind of blue purpley vibe. And then when it was day again, they did the same thing with dawn, with like some light kind of pinky red tones coming up, and then it was day. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, and I also really liked how well the lighting enhanced the emotions that were conveyed by the music, like made by the orchestra and the opera singers during the show. Like especially like during that sunset and like sunrise scene, I thought it was really cool to see how the orchestra conveyed like the feelings of worry, of like happiness, of like Pinkerton coming back to them, right? And like kind of the sadness that the characters felt though, and that like they kind of knew like, this might not happen. But like that was all kind of like conveyed through the different tones of the instruments. For example, like the flutes and the violins were often conveyed like innocence, like the innocence of Cho-Cho-san, right? But then like the percussion was really good with like being like, something bad's gonna happen. Like it was really good at foreshadowing like what was going on. So yeah, I think it was really cool to see how the instruments and like the singers like conveyed the situation, right?
Yeah, it really is a complex art form.
Yeah, I agree. I love that so many people came together to make this production, although the ideas were kind of a bit dated.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, like, the musical that we saw in the Heights was kind of like a modern opera. Like, it definitely took the same amount of people to produce.
Yeah, and it was like such a product of modern times, Like I liked how it was like about community and family and all that good stuff. And like the actors felt like they were portraying like real people, besides the whole, person of the song thing. I don't usually do that. Like they felt like they were real people struggling with real things, It was also cool how it brought like a lot of underrepresented groups like to the forefront,
Yeah, totally. Like, the way that the musical became a platform for issues that are important but like not necessarily in the spotlight was really cool. Like, one of the songs, Blackout, literally talks about how the people in this neighborhood are powerless. And it gave a voice to these people that aren't always heard, and it created a space for people that are underrepresented to enter the musical theater space and be on Broadway, and like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think we wrote out this
In words and
such a variety.
That's a good
words
point.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, hey! So glad you could rejoin us. We were just talking a little bit more about art, but we took a break because, so many things to discuss. It can be overwhelming. Anyways, we were chatting about how some of the other art forms we previously discussed are a bit grandiose and not always the most accessible for everyone.
Yeah. I think that the development of technology has really allowed art to become more accessible to everyday people. As you're shown with the photography project and everyone's great, stunning photos, most people have a camera on their phone and can take great photos wherever they go.
Yeah, those are some really good points you made. For me, what I thought was really interesting, brought up by talking about photography, was the concept of intentionality. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the difference between just using a medium, like taking a photo, and actually trying to create art within that medium. So when we did our project on photography, it made me really think about how everyone can take a picture, like using their phone camera. But the difference between that and actual art is actively trying to capture a meaning or a feeling in what you're doing. So looking at the techniques you're using and what elements you're capturing within it, how you're framing it, that's really what makes it art. And even though art is subjective, it's also important to think about and like kind of process what your audience is going to be perceiving. And that's also kind of what makes it art, is not just thinking about what you're capturing, but thinking about how it's going to be perceived by who you're presenting it to, rather than just taking it to take a picture and post it somewhere.
That's really cool. I think it's really awesome to think about how throughout this semester we've all really learned about what about art makes it so beautiful, right? And so now that we're kind of like nearly done with this class, I think it'd be really cool if we all think about what our answers are to what art is.
To me, art is expression, and I think that I use it to understand complex issues in the world around me.
I think art is a way that expresses emotion and beauty in a way that surpasses words alone.
I think that art, like everything, is subjective, and as frustrating as that can be for me when I see something that I don't think should be considered art, it's important to remember that art makes everyone feel different ways.
Like, I don't really understand all forms of art, but like, I'm glad that it exists, you know, because it's like an expression of the human experience, and like, it's a way to quantify all these sort of like complicated concepts and ideas in a way that like sometimes makes sense, but is always pretty, you know, important and valid.
For me, art is the communication of experiences and emotions that cannot always be conveyed through normal speech. So it looks like art has a different meaning for everyone, right? It's something that comes in many different forms and can create individualized messages, right? Considering how we found our own definitions of art in this class, I guess from here on we should try to consider how art is used now and how it can be used in the future to help ourselves and others understand the world around us. So yeah. Good job, guys.
Thanks for joining us, friend, for a lovely chat